Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to learn how to print something in the output in Java programming language. So in order to learn how to print the famous message hello world in the output in Java, we simply need to write down this line of code. So we write down system.output.println, and inside parentheses in quotes, we're going to write down our message. For example, hello and then world. If I want to write down another message, simply I again do the syntaxing. So I write down system.out.println, and inside parentheses, we're going to have welcome to Java programming. So when I run this code, we see that here we are having the hello world message and then welcome to Java programming message. But if I want to write another one, so system.out.println, and then I can say this is Reza Shaheen from Java programming. And when I run the code one more time, we see that again this message is showing in the output. This is Reza Shaheen from Java programming. But one thing to note is that here in the end, we need to have the semicolon as well. So please note the semicolon in the end, and simply whenever you want to print something in the terminal in the output, you write down system.out.println, and inside parentheses in quote, you write down your message. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to learn how to declare and print basic data types in Java. We are having several examples here. For the example 1, we are having this part. So we are using the keyword int, or let's say int, that is short for integer, which means whole number. So we write down int age equals 25. This line actually declares a variable named age, and it is assigned the value of 25. And this variable age is of integer data type. Okay. Then we print it using the system out println. So here is my message because I am showing the quotes. So we are having the age in the quotes, plus we want to print also the age variable. So this joins the text age with the value of the age variable and print it. So when I run the code, first of all, I see this. So this is the age, which is this message exactly that we printed here, that we put here. And then we see the number 25, which is this number that is assigned to age variable. Okay, so this is an example of an integer. Now let's talk about the floats. So float is used for numbers with decimals. So whenever I want to have a variable that is of float data type, I write down the float keyword. And we must add the letter F at the end of the number when we are having a float number or variable that is assigned with a float number. So I am having here a variable called temperature, which is of the float data type, and this number is assigned to it, 36.6, and we please note the F in the end. And finally, we are having the print again here. So we are saying that, for the example, body temperature, which is our message because it's in the code, plus the temperature variable, which is this number, plus the degree that we are talking about. So for example, we want to say body temperature is 36.6 degrees centigrade. Yes, let's say Celsius, sorry. So now this is the second example. We see it in the output, body temperature 36.6, and then the C, which is here in the code that is shown here. And next, we would like to talk about the doubles. So in example 3, we are having the double data type. Double is like float, but it allows more decimal places. And this is useful when we need higher precision, like for prices or scientific data, when we are having a lot of decimal numbers. a number with a lot of decimals, let's say. So I'm having a variable called price that is of double data type, and this number is assigned to this variable. And here we are printing it in the output. So the price and the $sign message is shown. So we see the price and the $sign, and then when the price variable is called, this number 199.99 that is assigned to that variable is shown here in the output. Okay. Next, we are having the Boolean data type in example 4. So Boolean actually represents a true or false value. This is used in decision and logic checks in programs. So here I'm having a variable called isJavaFun, and the true is assigned to this variable, and this variable is of Boolean data type, meaning that it can either take true or false. And now in this case we are having the true being assigned to it. So then I'm having this question being shown as a message in the output, is Java fun? Then when I call the variable is Java fun, it is going to print true for us in the output. Then we are having the example 5 where we discuss about character data type. So a character, or let's say a char here, stores a single character and must be enclosed in single quotes. So note that we are having a single quote here. And here we assign the grade A and print it. So the grade A, this A is assigned in single quote, is assigned to a variable called grade, which is of char, or let's say character data type. And system out println, we are going to print it in the output. So we are having this message because it's in double quotes, so grade and colon, and then A is being printed because we are calling the grade variable. Next, we are having the string data type here. So when we discuss about the string data type, string is used to store words or sentences enclosed in double quotes. So you see that Reza is in double quotes. And we are having a variable called name, and Reza is assigned to it, and name is of string data type. Okay. Then we try to print it. So I say name, and then a Reza is being printed in the output. So name, this is Reza. Okay. And finally, the example 7, we are having the combining multiple types. Here we are having the variable called year. It's of integer data type, and the number 2025 is assigned to it. Then we are having a variable called course. It's of string data type, and Java programming is assigned to it. Now we are using this syntax system.out.println to print this line. So here we are first of all showing this message course, and then the variable course is called, which is going to print Java programming. And then we are having the year being called, so this number 2025 is going to be printed in the output. So we see that Java course, Java programming 2025 is shown in the output. So in this lesson, we've seen how to use Java to declare different data types of different types of variables, and how to print them using system.out.println. These are the building blocks of every Java program. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to discuss how to perform certain arithmetic operations, or let's say mathematical operations in Java. So first of all, I need to declare two variables. The first variable is called A. It's of integer data type, and number 10 is assigned to it. The second variable is called B. It's of integer data type, and number 3 is assigned to it. But how can I perform arithmetic operations? In order to perform arithmetic operations, simply we can use the mathematical symbols. So for example, the plus for addition, minus for subtraction, then star for multiplication, slash for the division, it's an integer division, and then a modulus operator for finding the remainder. So in order to do the calculation, first of all, I would like to print some messages. So I use system out println syntax to print arithmetic operations. So this is what is shown here in the output. Then I print the values that are stored in variables a and b. So we see that for variable a and b, we are printing them in the output here. So you see that here I have the codes because I want to print a little bit of message. So I write down a equals. So this a equals is being printed here with a space. Then we are having plus a, meaning that I would like to add a, and a variable is holding the value 10. So 10 is being printed. Then I have a comma and then b equals, comma, b equals. Then we are having the plus and then the name of the other variable, which is b, and the number is assigned to it is number 3. So a equals 10, b equals 3. So this is the first message that I would like to print on the top. Then I would like to perform the addition. In order to perform the addition, first of all, I'm going to print this message saying that a plus b equals, because if I don't have this and only print the output 13, which is 10 plus 3, it would be confusing to see, okay, 13 comes from where? Okay, I need to do the calculation again in my head to see, okay, a plus b equals 13. But this message simply is shown here, a plus b, and then we are having the variable a plus variable b as a form of addition. So their value is 13 as being printed in the output. Then I do the same thing here. Again, a minus b equals in the codes. So we see this part of the output. Then a minus b, so it is 10 minus 3, it will be 7, that is shown here in the output. Then we are having the multiplication. So a multiplied by b, it is equal to 30, which is 10 multiplied by 3. Then a divided by b, it will be 3. So 10 divided by 3 is 3. So it's an integer division. And finally, in order to understand if a is divided by b, what would be the remainder of this division? We need to use the modulus operator, which is this symbol, okay? This operator. So a modulo b, we are going to calculate the remainder of a division of a divided by b. So 10 divided by 3, the remainder is number 1. Basically, in this video, we learned how to perform mathematical operations. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In today's video, we would like to learn how to perform rational operations in Java. First of all, I'm going to declare two variables called a and b. Both of them are of integer data type. For a, we assign number 10, and for b, we assign number 3 to it. So a equals 10 and b equals 3. Now I would like to perform a rational operations. What do I mean by rational operations? Let me illustrate it with an example. Now a holds the value 10 and b holds the value 3. In order to perform the first rational operations, I would like to see if they're equal or not. So a equals b. This is what I write. Okay, a equals b. So the compiler is going to compare a and b and tell me if this statement a equals b is true or it's false. And we know the answer. A equals 10 and b equals 3. So a equals b, it's not true. It's definitely false. So when I run the code, now I expect to see the false in the output. So a equals b, we see false. Why? Because a is 10 and b is 3. So they're not equal. This is why we see false in the output in the first place. So this is the first rational operation. And also, in order to print the message before performing the rational operation, we do it in double quotes. So a equals b and colon, and then we see the result is false. Then a is not equal to b. This is a is not equal to b. So in order to check if they are equal, we need to have two equals sign. But when we don't want to when we want to actually check if they're not equal, we need to have the exclamation mark and then the equal sign, meaning that they're not equal. I'm saying in this line, A is not equal to B. Is it true? Yes, it's true, because they are indeed not equal. So this is why we see true here in the output. Then the next rational operation would be A is greater than B. So the value of A is 10, the value of B is 3. Therefore, 10 is greater than 3. Yes? Yes, this is true. And this is why we see true in the output. Next, we are having A is less than B. So A is 10, B is 3. So 10 is less than 3. Is it true? No, it's not true. We know that it's not true, but when the compiler, we want the compiler to decide. So A is less than B. So the answer is false, because this is indeed not true. Then we want to check another rational operation here. So A is greater than or equal to B. Is it true? Yes. 10 is greater than or equal to 3. Yes, this is true. And then A is less than or equal to B. So is it true? No, it's not true. So this is false. So we see that here in this example, we had the comparison of rational operations. And in order to show all of these messages and the results in the output, just as a reminder, we use the system.out.println syntax, and in parentheses, we write down whatever we want to be shown in the terminal. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to discuss about logical operators. So here we are having two Boolean variables, x and y, and x equals true and y equals false. We would like to perform some logical operators, including and, or, and not. So before going to review them, I would like to give you a little bit of background, and then we discuss the details. So when we are having two variables, the first variable is true and the second variable is true as well. So what would be the output? When the first one is true and the second one is true, therefore the output is true when we are having the AND logical operator. Then when we are having true and false, what would be the output? So when we are having one true and one false, the output is false, because we are having the AND operator. In the AND operator, both of them must be true to have a true output. Then we are having the false again and true. So the output is again false, because if we want to have a true output, we must have two truths. Then false and false, definitely the output is false. So we can understand that when we are working with the AND logical operator, in order to have the true in the output, we must have both of the conditions to be true, before the AND operator and after the AND operator. If both of them are true, the output is true. But if we are having at least one false, the output is definitely false when we are working with the AND operator. Okay. Later on, when we discuss, for example, the for loops, the if conditions, etc., we're going to understand this more in more depth. But for the moment, we need to learn the basics. Now, if I want to work with the OR operator, what about that? So true or false, what would be the output now? So when we are having true or false, because at least one of the conditions is true or one of the variables is true, the output is true. Okay, because we are saying either this one or the other one. If we are having true or true, the output is definitely true. If we have false or true, the output is again true, because we at least need to have one true to have a true output. Finally, when we have false or false, the output is going to be false. So after understanding the OR operator, we see that in order to have a true output, we need to have at least one true. So one true here, and two truths here. So we have a true output. But if we are having two falses, we are going to definitely have a false output. With this background, let me illustrate the example. Now I have the logical operations here. And if you remember, we had two Boolean variables, x equals true and y equals false. Now, I would like to have the x and y being printed in the output. So I print this message, logical operators here, and then this line, x and y, x equals true, y equals false. First of all, I'm going to perform the logical operator. So x and y. I would like to see the output of x and y. Okay, so x and two and symbol, let's say the and operator, and then the variable y. So looking at the output, we see that this resulted in false as we anticipated here. So when we are having one true and one false, the output is definitely false. And you see that the false is there because when we are having the AND operator, if we want to have a true output, we must have two variables or two conditions. Both of them must be true. Okay. Now, how about the logical OR operator? So x or y, this one is true, this one is false. So because we are having at least one true, it means that the output will be true. Okay, so this is true in the output. And if we want to see the reverse of a logical operator, for example, x, simply we can have this mark before the name of the variable. So exclamation mark and then the name of the variable x. So x was originally equal to true, but now that I have this exclamation mark before the name of the variable, we're going to have false in the output. So in this video, we learned about the AND operator here. We learned about the OR operator here. And then we had examples here how to perform logical operators. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to learn how to work with if conditions in Java. So just imagine that you would like to implement and execute a block of code if a certain condition is met, and if that condition is not met, you would like to execute another block of code. So you need to check a few things before you know which conditions you would like to go with. Okay, so in this video we are going to discuss how this if condition can help us to do so. First of all, this is the problem statement. We would like to check if a number is positive, negative, or 0. Okay, and firstly we have a variable called num. It's of integer data type and number -5 is assigned to it. Now I would like to know if this num is a positive number or it's a negative number or it's 0. In order to check it using the Java, I want the compiler to decide for me, and obviously if I look at it, I understand that it's a negative number. But I would like to ask the compiler to make the decision for me to check if it's a positive, negative, or a number that is 0, because this is one number that I'm checking now. Later on, maybe I have 2,000 numbers that I want to be checked, so I cannot do it manually. It's very hard. In order to have such a program here, we need to use the if keyword. This is where we discuss the condition. So I write down if, this is the reserved keyword in Java. And then in parentheses, I write down the condition that I want to check. Okay. So here I write down if that variable called num is greater than 0, then print positive number in the output. How do I print? I use this syntax. System.out.println. So if the number is greater than 0, print this message for me. Okay, literally I'm telling the compiler to do so. But what if this condition is not true? So else if is where we are going to have another condition. So because I have the if condition one time here, as of now that I used the if condition, if I want to add a new if condition, I need to write down else if. Okay, so else if, and the condition in parentheses says that num is less than 0. So basically in the first condition I was checking num is greater than 0, and now I'm checking if the number is less than 0. So what do I do if the number is less than 0? If the number is less than 0, simply execute this part of the code, negative number. Okay, so if the number is greater than 0, only this part of the code will be executed. You see, I have the braces here. Okay, so only this part of the code will be executed if the number is greater than 0. So this is why I mentioned that if you have a certain condition in mind and you want to execute a certain part of your code, only if that condition is true, this is why I mentioned that. And if this condition num greater than 0 is not correct, we're going to go and check the next condition. So num is less than 0. If this one is correct, we are going to execute only this part of the code, the blue part. So we are going to show this message, negative number. Okay, and finally we are having the else part. So when we are going to execute the else part, when is it possible to go and execute the else part? The moment that all the above mentioned conditions, neither of them is true, the compiler goes to the else part and prints 0. Because if a number is not greater than 0 and it is not less than 0 as well at the same time, definitely that number is 0. So now that I have the num equals -5, so when I run the code, we see negative number. This message is shown in the output. So this message comes from this part. So num is -5. -5, is it greater than 0? No. Therefore, this part is not executed. We go to this part. Okay. Now, num is it -5? Is it less than 0? Yes. This part is correct. This condition is correct. So we go and execute this part of the code. Therefore, the compiler prints this message. Negative number is shown in the output. But instead of -5, if I have 5, so now 5, is it larger than 0? Yes, this statement is true. Therefore, this part of the code is executed only, and the remaining parts are not going to be executed. So if I run the code now, we see that positive number message is shown in the output. Okay. Now, if I modify this num equals to 5 and now it's equals 0, the compiler starts from here. 0, is it greater than 0? No. Then comes here. 0, is it less than 0? No. Else part. Because we didn't pass neither of the condition above, we fall in the else part and we show it here. 0 is being printed in the output. So when I run the code, we see the message 0 is being shown in the output. So in this video, we learned how to check if a number is positive, negative, or 0 using if-else conditions in Java. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to have a coding exercise using the if conditions in Java. We would like to check to see if a number is even or odd. What is the definition of even and odd numbers? First, we need to review their definition, and then we are going to execute the code. So a number, let's say even number. A number is even if it is divided by 2 and the remainder of this division equals 0. Okay. Otherwise, it is an odd number. So this is a definition of even and odd numbers. If a number is divided by 2 and the remainder of this division equals 0, that number is even. Otherwise, that number is an odd number, meaning that if that number is divided by 2 and the remainder is any number but 0, It means that that number is an odd number. Take 10 as an example. Number 10, if it's divided by 2, the remainder of this division is 0, meaning that number 10 is an even number. However, if you divide number 9 by 2, you will see that the remainder of this division does not equal 0, meaning that this number is an odd number. Let me illustrate it with an example. So first of all, we're going to have a variable called num, and number 7 is assigned to this variable called num, which is of integer data type. Now I would like to check to see if this number equals 7 is an even number or an odd number. How can I check it based on this definition that I just gave you? We need to check using the if condition. So if, and in parentheses we write down the conditions, if that number is divided by 2 and the remainder of that division equals 0, modulo operator is going to help me to find the remainder of a division. So if that number is divided by 2, the remainder of that division equals 0, print this message, even number. Okay, and why I have 2 equals here? Because 1 equal in programming is for assignment. Now I'm assigning number 7 to a variable called number. But if I want the equality check, if I want to check if they are equal or not, we need to have 2 equals. Okay, this is just something by default you need to have in mind. So if number is divided by 2 and the remainder of this division equals 0, we are going to print this even number message in the output. But if this condition is not true, it means that that number is not an even number. Therefore, it's an odd number. So the compiler goes and checks the else part and execute this part of the code. In this example, if 7 is divided by 2, the remainder of this division, is it equal to 0? No, it's not equal to 0. Therefore, this condition is not true. This part of the code is not executed, therefore, and the else part is executed instead. So we are having the odd number. So when I run the code, we see that odd number is shown here in the output. But what if I change this number? Now I want number 8 to be investigated. So 8 divided by 2, the remainder of this division, is it equal to 0? Yes, it is equal to 0. Therefore, this part of the code is executed and even number message is shown in the output. Basically, this is how we can check if a number is odd or even in Java. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to learn how to find the largest of 2 numbers. Just to let you know, I would like to give you an example to illustrate this concept. Now I'm having 2 variables, a and b. So both of them are of integer data types. And a equals 10 and b equals 20. Okay, so we initialized these 2 variables, a and b. Now I would like to know and find out which one is the largest number. Obviously, we know it, b is 20, so b is the largest number. However, I would like the compiler to decide this for me. In order to do that, we need to have an if condition there. Here, first of all, I write down the if condition. So if word is written there, and then the condition is inside the parentheses. We say if a is larger than b, print this part of the code. Let's say execute this part of the code, which is going to print a is larger. Else if a is less than b, okay, a is less than b. If this part is true, print b is larger, as you see here. And if neither of these 2 conditions is true, simply go to the else part and print this part. Both are equal. So now that a is 10 and b is 20, so 10, is it larger? Is it greater than 20? No. Therefore, this part of the code is not executed. Then we go to the else if part. 10 is less than 20. Yes, this is true. Therefore, this part of the code is executed, which is going to print b is larger. So we see that when I run the code, b is larger is shown here in the output. Now, what if I modify the number 10? So now a equals 30. So with this modification, if we check 30, is it larger than 20? Is it greater than 20? Yes, this statement is true. Therefore, only this part of the code is executed, which is going to print a is larger. So when I run the code, we see here a is larger is shown in the output. And these two other conditions are not even checked because the compiler found the condition that was true, because only one of these conditions can be executed at a time. So now if I modify a again and I put number 20, so 20, is it greater than 20? No. Then it goes to the else if part. 20, is it lower than 20? Is it less than 20? No. And then it goes to the else part, which is going to print both are equal. So when I run the code now, we see both are equal message is shown in the output. Basically, this is how we can find the largest of two numbers. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to discuss a grade calculation system using if-else conditions. So imagine that you're a student and you received a score of 82 and you would like to grade yourself. Basically, there are some system, or let's say grade calculation system, based on which you can understand if you are grade A, grade B, grade C based on your score. We would like to have the same thing now in Java. So imagine that your score is 82. So we need to declare a variable, and this variable name is a score. You can name it whatever you want. It's of integer data type, and number 82 is assigned to this variable score. Okay. Now I would like to have the definition of my grading system. I would like to mention that if the score of the student is greater than or equal to 90, I'm going to label it as grade A. If it's greater than or equal to 80, however, it is going to be grade B. Greater than or equal to 70, it is going to be grade C. Greater than or equal to 60, it is going to be grade D. Otherwise, we are going to have the fail message. So if neither of these conditions are true, if none of them is true, therefore we are going to show this fail message. So first of all, when I run this code now, we see that grade B is being printed out in the output. It means that here 82 is considered to be grade B. But let me go through the details so you would see how it works. The way that it works for the compiler is like the following. So we are going to have this checking using the if condition, saying that score, is it greater than or equal to 90? No, because it's 82. 82, is it greater than or equal to 90? No. So this part of the code is not going to be executed, and the compiler goes for the next condition. So it is going to check the next condition. 82, is it larger than, greater than, or equal to 80? Yes, this condition is true. Therefore, this part of the code is being executed, which is basically printing grade B in the output as we see here. But what if I change the grade? So I write down 72 now. So what happens is that it is going to check, is it greater than 90? No. Is it greater than 80? No. 72, is it greater than 70? Yes. Therefore, this part of the code is being executed and grade C is going to be printed in the output. So when I run the code now, you see that grade C is being shown here in the output. If we again change the score to be 62 now, and I run the code one more time, it is going to be now grade D, because 62 is greater than 60 and grade D is being printed here in the output. But whatever that is below 60, like 58, it is going to show the failed message for us, or let's say to us in the output. So when I run with the score of 58, we see that neither of these conditions is true. So none of them is true, in fact. 58 is not greater than 90, not greater than 80, not greater than 70, not greater than 60. Therefore, it goes for the else part, and it is going to print the fail message in the output as we see it here. So in this video, we learned how to design a great calculation system using if-else conditions. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to discuss how to check conditions using switch statement. So first of all, we need to learn what switch statement is and why we need to use switch statements. So the reason why we use switch statement is because if we are having a lot of conditions to be checked, we can do it still with if-else conditions. However, it reduces the readability of our code. So it's better to use a switch statement when we are having a lot of conditions to be checked. Let's illustrate this with an example. We would like to have the day of the week using switch statement. For example, we would like to have a variable called day and value 1 is assigned to it. 1, what does it mean? I mean Monday. So the first day of the week is Monday, and we are going to calculate the day of the week using switch statement. So the variable called day is initialized to be 1. It's of integer data type. Then instead of having the if conditions, I'm having the switch keyword, switch statement. So we write down the switch, and inside parentheses, we write down the variable we would like to iterate over the condition. So this is the condition that we would like to check. This is the variable based on which the condition is going to be checked, let's say. So I'm going to check the value of the variable day. This is why day is inside the parentheses. Now I would like to see, previously we used to say if day equals 1, do this. If day equals 2, do this. If day equals 3, do another thing, for example. Now we write down switch day, and then the case that day equals 1 is this case. Okay, this is going to be happen. So you write down case and then number 1, meaning that if day, the variable inside parentheses for the switch statement, was equal to 1, then do this, put a colon, then print Monday and break. Get out of the switch statement. Break is going to help us to get out of this switch statement block of code, because the switch statement starts from here and it is going to end here. When you understand that day equals 1, you're going to execute this part of the code and then simply break. So you're not going to execute the rest of the codes, because your case was the day 1. Okay. So when I run the code now, if I run the code now, you will see that Monday is being printed in the output. Why? Because day equals 1 and we are having the condition over day, and the case that day equals 1, the Monday is going to be printed in the output. So if I write down number 3, meaning that I'm talking about Wednesday. So when I run the code now, you see that here the Wednesday is going to be printed in the output. But how does it work? So we are going to iterate over the values that are assigned to the day variable. Okay, so we check the day variable. What is the number? It is equal to 3. Because it is equal to 3, we are going to implement the case 3. So note that the switch keyword and the case keyword are the reserved keywords for working with switch statement. And inside parentheses, you write down your variable name that you care about, the value that it is going to take. And here that you see in green 1 to 7 are different values that the day variable can take. Now it equals 3. I'm basically saying that if day equals 3, print Wednesday. Okay, so Wednesday is being printed in the output. So basically this is how we can work with the switch statement. And we see that here we are having 7 cases. So from case 1 to case 7, Monday to Sunday, and the default case is whatever that you're going to enter that is not case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up until 7, it is going to say invalid day. So if I write down, for example, number 13 here and I run the code one more time, you're going to see that invalid day message is being shown in the output, meaning that here this is the default, is like the else part in the if else condition. Why? Because we are checking to see if day equals 1, do this, if day equals 2, do this, if day equals 5, do this, etc. If day equals a number that is neither of these cases, it is neither of these cases, then mention invalid day that you see that here is being printed in the output. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to create a simple calculator using the switch statement in Java. So first of all, we are having 2 variables being declared. Both of them are of integer data type. And number 8 is assigned to the variable called num1, and number 2 is assigned to the variable called num2. Then we are having a character being initialized to be this. So this is the addition sign, okay? And this character name is operator. Now we would like to create a simple calculator using the switch statement. In order to do that, we would like to have the switch keyword, and we are going to iterate for the value that is assigned to the operator variable, okay? So in case that operator equals an addition, we are going to print this, so num1 plus num2. In case the operator equals subtraction, like this one, we are going to have num1 minus num2. If we are having a star, num1 multiplied by num2. If we are having a division, num1 divided by num2. So depending on what is assigned to the operator variable, we are going to have different cases. And if the operator equals to neither of these symbols, operators, we're going to have the default part where we are having the invalid operator in the output. So in this example, now I have num1 and num2. They are holding the value 8 and 2. Then we are having the addition as the operator. So 8 plus 2 is 10. So because operator equals the addition operator, we are going to switch over the operator variable, and the case will be active. The case that will be activated is this one, because we are having in case operator equals an addition signature sign, or symbol, let's say. So this is our case, and this part is going to be executed. So num1 plus num2 is going to be shown in the output, which is number 10 that you see here. But what if I change this one? So now I have the subtraction sign and I run the code. We see that the output changed. Now it's 6. So what happened? So the compiler checks operator equals this symbol. No, therefore this line is not executed. It goes for the next case where we are having this symbol. So there we are having num1 negative num2, and then 8 minus 2, it will be 6 in the output. So this is what happens. Actually, when we change it again, if I have the multiplication or a star symbol, now this case is going to be activated. Why? Because operator equals a star, which is our case. So in this case, we wanted to have num1 multiplied by num2, which is 16 in the output. And finally, if we are having the division here, when I run the code, we see that 8 will be divided by 2, which is 4 in the output. So in this video, we learned how to design a calculator in Java using switch statement. Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we would like to have a program that checks the eligibility for voting. So we would like to check if our users can vote or not, and we are going to define certain criteria for that. In order to have such a program, we need to have the age of the users. So for example, here I assume that there is only one user whose age is 17 and it's of integer data type. Okay. Now I would like to define the criteria for being eligible or not for voting. In order to define it, I would like to have only one criteria. So the criteria would be if the user is older than 18. So their age is greater than or equal to 18. If this is the case, they're eligible to vote. Otherwise, they are not eligible to vote. So now we are having the age 17 and we check to see 17, is it greater than or equal to 18? The answer is no. Therefore, this part of the code is not executed. And because this condition is not true, we directly go to the else part and we are having this in the output. So not eligible to vote. As you see here, it is shown there. But what if I change this? So instead of this 17, now I have number 20 and I run the code one more time. So the compiler checks to see 20, is it greater than or equal to 18? Yes, this statement is true. Therefore, this part of the code is executed, eligible to vote. So this is how we can design a program by which we can check and understand the eligibility for voting. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to learn about for loops. So firstly, we would like to print numbers from 1 to 5 using for loops. But if we want to print these numbers, we have one way to do so. So the way that we can do it is that we can have such a thing. Let me comment these lines first. So this part also and this part. Okay. Now I can have the print of 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally 5. So I can print them from 1 to 5 because these are the numbers that I want to print. So I write down the syntax system out print ln number 1, 2, 3 up until 5. So when I run this code, I see that in the output we are having from number 1 to 5. So we could print numbers from 1 to 5, but the statement says that do it using a for loop. In order to use a for loop, we need to define a for loop, and for loops are generally better than doing things manually because now we are trying to basically using for loops to make things easier for us, because if I want to print like 1000 lines or from number 1 to 1000, it would be very hard to do it manually. This is why actually we code, to make our life easier. However, if we use for loops, you can do it in 2 lines. Let me show you how. So when I come here, let me comment now this part. So oops, sorry. So now let me comment this part. Okay. So now that I comment this part, we see that we can make it easier using for loops. Okay. Now I want to have a for loop to print from number 1 to 5. In order to do that, firstly, we need to write down the for keyword. Then inside parentheses, we need to clarify 3 things. So the starting point, the variable with its starting point, the ending point, and the incremental value. So these are the 3 things that we need to know about it. The starting point, the ending point, and the incremental value. Okay. So this is the starting point. I define an integer variable called I, which is my iterating variable. Okay, so the iterating variable I equals 1, meaning that it starts from 1, and we are having semicolon. Then we are going to continue this for loop as long as I is less than or equal to 5. This is just an assumption for this problem statement. We can of course modify it for later examples. Then semicolon, and then we are having the I++, meaning that in each iteration I would like to increment the value of I by one value. And this is basically the for loop. So here what is going to iteratively happen is the fact that in each iteration I is being printed in the output, meaning that in the first iteration I equals 1, we are going to print number 1. Okay, so number 1 is being printed. Then we are having the second iteration, I equals 2, number 2 is being printed. Okay, because in each iteration we are having I, and I gets different values in different iterations. So the first time I equals 1, we print 1, and then because we are going to increment after each iteration I by one value, we are having the I equals 2, we enter the loop again. Why? Because 2 is still less than 5. So we print 2, we print 3, we print 4, we print 5, but we increment the I to another by another value, so it will become 6. So I equals 6. Then 6, is it less than or equal to 5? No. Therefore this condition is not true. Therefore we don't have 6 being printed in the output. This is why we mention continue this for loop as long as I is less than or equal to 5. So now we are having it print here in the output from 1 to 5 is being printed using for loop. So you see that here using 2 lines we could do it. We can go up until like 100, for example. Let me run the code now. So when I run the code now, you see that we went up until 100. So these are the prints. You see, everything is done in only 2 lines. However, if we wanted to do these things manually, it would have been very hard to, write the syntax 100 times in different lines. So this is why coding is going to make our life much easier. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In today's video, we would like to print numbers that are even between 0 and 10. So whatever the we would like to actually find the even numbers that are in this range for us. How can we do it? We can directly print 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, but there is a better way to do it. We can use for loops. The starting point will be at number 2, the first even number. Then we are going to continue as long as I, the iterating variable, is less than or equal to 10, because the 10 is the ending point of our range. After that, we need to have the incremental value for our iteration. So the incremental value could be starting from 2, ending at 10, but the incrementing value will be but not by 1 unit, by 2 units. Let me illustrate it with an example in the code. So we are having a for loop. The iterating variable I equals 2, so the starting point is 2, and this loop is going to continue as long as I is less than or equal to 10. And in each iteration, we are going to increment the value of I by 2, because we would like it to have only even numbers. So if I print number 2 in the first iteration, in the next iteration I equals 4, because we are incrementing by 2 values. If I increment it by 1 value only, it will be 3. I don't want 3 because I'm looking for even numbers. This is why I have the incremental of 2 values in each iteration. So we are going to start from 2 as long as I is less than 10, less than or equal to 10, and I is going to be incremented by 2 values. Plus equals mean like this. So we could have plus I plus 2. So we could have something like this, meaning that the new I equals I plus 2. So the current I is 2. We are going to increment it by another 2 value. It will be 4, and 4 will be assigned to the left hand side, which is here. Or we can have this, for the sake of simplicity, we can have plus equals, 2. Let me put a comment here for you. So I plus equals 2 is the same as I equals I plus 2. So I, the value initially it is 2, plus 2, it will be 4, and it will be assigned to the new I. So you can either write it this way, or you can write it this way, depending on what is the most convenient one. Okay, and then in each iteration we are going to have the print of value I. So when I run this code, we see in the first iteration number 2 is being printed because I equals 2, and we print 2 right away. Then I equals 4 because we incremented by 2 values, so 4 is being printed, then 6, then 8, and then 10. If I want to print only even numbers between 0 and 100, also we can do it. So the ending point is now 100. I run the code one more time. You see that only the even numbers are being printed: 100, 98, 96, 94, 92, 90, 88, 84, 82, 80, etc. until the end. So this is how we can have the print of even numbers from 0 to 10 using for loops. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video we would like to write a program that calculates the sum of numbers from 1 to 5 using a for loop. So we know that if we want to have this calculation manually, we can have it simply. We can have a variable called x, int x equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, and finally we have the sum of these numbers from 1 to 5. So this is something that we can do it manually. But what if we want to do it for 2000 numbers? How would it be possible to do it manually? It would be very hard. So this is why we use for loops, in order to do it quickly and in a more efficient way. So we are having a variable called sum that is equal to 0 in the beginning of the program, and then we are having a for loop for each iterating variable I equals to 1, and this loop is going to be continued as long as I is less than or equal to 5, and in each iteration we are going to increment the value of I by 1 unit. So in each iteration what we do is that we are having the sum equals plus equals I. Plus equals I means that sum equals sum plus I. They are identical, either this or this. Okay, they are identical. It's your choice to choose which one you would like to work with. So in the first iteration I equals 1, therefore we are having sum equals 0 plus 1. Why 0 plus 1? Because 0 is the initial number, and then I equals 1 in the first iteration. So we are having 0 plus 1, the output will be 1. Then we are having I equals 2, we are having sum equals 1 plus 2. Why 1 plus 2? Where the sum equals 1 now from the first iteration, and I equals 2. This is why we are having 1 plus 2. It will be 3. In the third iteration we are having the sum equals 3 plus 3 equals 6. Then we are having the I equals 4. We are having the sum equals 6 plus 4 equals 10. Then finally we are having I equals 5. So sum equals 10 plus 5. So the output will be 15 using this for loop. So when I run this code, we should be able to see the same number. So the sum equals 15. Yes. So we did a for loop, and in each iteration we added the value of I to the variable sum that we initialized to be 0 before the for loops. And when the for loops is finished, we are having the print of the variable sum here that you see it here in the output. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video we would like to write a program that prints like a countdown from 5 to 1. So when I run the code, we see 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I would like to see this in the output. How can I do it using a for loop? In order to write such a program, we need to have a for loop, and for the iterating variable I that starts at 5, and it is going to continue as long as I is greater than or equal to 1. And in each iteration, we are going to decrease the value of I by 1 unit. Okay, so it is starting from 5, then it will be 4, then 3, then 2, and then 1, and then it will stop, because I is going to continue as long as I is greater than or equal to 1. So 5 is the first iteration, is the value of the first iteration for the variable I. So in the first iteration, we are going to print 5. Then we reduce the value of it by 1 unit, so it will be 4. So we print 4, then we print 3, then we print 2, and then we print 1. So this is how basically we can have a countdown system from 5 to 1 using a for loop, but we could have it from 100 also. So when I run the code now, I see that we are having 100, 99, 98, 97, 96, and it is being reduced up until it reaches number 1 here in the output. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to learn how to print numbers from 1 to 5 using while loops in Java. So first of all, we are having a variable called I. It's of integer data type and it is equal to 1. So for a while loop, we need to have our iterating variable being defined a priori to our loop, to our while loop. And we are going to have the while loop, and this while loop is going to continue as long as I is less than or equal to 5. Okay, so in the first iteration, we check to see if 1 is less than 5. Yes. Okay, so print that number of I, which is number 1, and then in the next line increment its value. So I equals 2 now. It goes back to check the condition again. 2 less than 5, yes. So print 2 and increment it to 3. 3 less than 5, yes. So print 3 and increment it by 1. So 4 is less than 5, yes. Print 4, increment it by 1, it will become 5. So 5 is less than or equal to 5, yes. So print 5 and increment it by 1 unit, so it will become 6. And now 6, is it less than or equal to 5? No. Therefore, the while loop is terminated and we don't have any other iteration. And looking at the output, we see number 1 to 5 is being printed in the output. And this could be this could have another extension. For example, we could have while I is less than 50, for example, and I run the code now, you will see that we are going to start from 1 and it is going to continue until it reaches number 50 in the output. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to learn how to print a string 3 times or multiple times, let's say. Now I would like to print hello world, this phrase, 3 times using a while loop. In order to do that, first of all, I initialize my iterating variable. It is initialized to be equal to 0. It's of integer type and it is called count. I would like to continue my while loop as long as this count is less than 3, meaning that it starts at 0, it will be 1 and 2. So we are going to have 3 iterations as exactly as this number that we were having here. So we would like to print it 3 times. In the first iteration, 0 is less than 3, yes. So we're going to enter this while loop, we print the hello world, and we increment the count. So now count is 1. 1 is less than 3, yes. So we are going to print the hello world one more time. Then we are going to increment the value from 1 to 2. So 2 less than 3, yes. Hello world is being printed. Now it will become 3, the count variable. So from 2 it became 3. So 3, is it less than 3? No. If it was less than or equal to 3, this statement was true. But now it says 3 less than 3. No, it's not true. We're not going to enter the while loop anymore. Looking at the terminal, we see that hello world is being printed 3 times, exactly as we want it here. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video we would like to print even numbers from 0 to 10 using a while loop. So first of all, the first even number is number 2. So number 2 is assigned to a variable called num, which is of integer data type. Then we use a while loop to print only the even numbers. So we say as long as this num variable, which is equal to 2, is less than or equal to 10, enter this while loop. Why less than or equal to 10? Because we want to have the even numbers between 0 and 10. So we don't want to go over that. We could go, but this is the problem statement for the moment. So 2, is it less than 10? Yes. So print number 2. You see it here. Print number 2 in the first iteration. Then increment the value of the variable num by 2 values. Now it was 2, it will become 4 now. So 4 less than or equal to 10, yes, so print 4. So we see 4 here, and then increment 2 more unit to it. So now 4 became 6, 6 less than 10, yes, print 6, and then add 2 more values, so we see 6 here. Then 8 less than 10, print 8, incremented by another 2 value, so we have 8 here, and then 10 is less than or equal to 10, yes, so print 10, and then increment this value by another 2 units, so it will become 12. 12, is it less than 10? No, this statement is not correct. Therefore, we are not going to enter this while loop anymore. So the program is finished, and we see that here we are having any even numbers between 0 and 10. We could have, for example, here we could have like between 0 and 20, for example. So when I run the code, you're going to see from 0 to 20, all the even numbers are being printed here. 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, and finally here 20. So this is how we can use a while loop in order to print even numbers. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video, we would like to discuss do while loops in Java. So this is the problem statement. Print numbers 1 to 5 using do while loop. So a do while loop is going to be defined like this. So I have the do keyword here, I have my square brackets, and then after the end of the square bracket, I'm going to have the while in the end. So let me illustrate this concept with an example. I would like to print numbers 1 to 5. So I initialize a variable called j, which is of integer data type, to be 1. So I would like to write a do while saying that do this, so do this while this condition. Okay, so execute this part of the code while this condition is true. So we are going to print the value of the variable j in the first iteration, then increment the value of j. Okay, so j from 1, it becomes 2 now. And we check to see 2, is it less than or equal to 5? Yes. Okay, now do one more time. So now print 2, increment it to be 3. 3, is it less than 5? Yes. So do it one more time. Print number 3, then increment it to be 4. 4, is it less than 5? Yes. So increment it. So go back up again and print it. So 4 is being printed. Then increment the number of j from 4 to 5. So 5, is it less than or equal to 5? Yes. So go and print 5 and increment it to by another 1 unit. So it will become 6. 6, is it less than 5? No. So the loop is terminated. But there is a difference between do while loops and for loops and while loops. So there, while we were discussing the while loops and for loops, we were first checking the conditions, saying that to check if this j is less than 5 initially, then we were going to execute a certain block of code. However, here what we are doing is that we are going to execute the block of code once at least, and then we're going to check the condition. So let me change this number. So now j equals 6, and I run the code. So what happens here is that we see j equals 6. We are going to do this part of the code, so execute this part of the code, saying that print j and increment this value. So j is being printed, and then it is being incremented, and we are checking j, is it less than or equal to 5? No, therefore we are not having anything else, because now j is 7. But what happens here is that j is already being printed once, while in the for and while loops it was not going to happen. We were checking the conditions, then we were executing the code. So this is why the do while loop is going to first print and execute certain block of the code in the square brackets of the do part, then it is going to check the condition for the next iterations. So in this video, we learned how to print numbers from 1 to 5 using a do while loop. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video, we would like to provide a coding exercise with respect to the do while loop in Java. So I would like to run the program first, so you would see how the program works, and then we are going to discuss how the program is coded in fact. So when I run the code, it asks me to enter a positive number, but instead of a positive number, I write down -2. It says enter a positive number. I would write down -10. Again, it repeats, so I'm going to write down -20, -14, etc. So it is going to continue asking me to enter a positive number as long as I am writing a negative number. So as long as I'm keeping writing a negative number, it is going to ask me enter a positive number, enter a positive number. But once I write down a positive number like this one, 10 here, it is going to say you entered 10. So the thing is that how is it possible? The way that we need to implement this one is using a do while loop. Why? Because without checking any conditions, first we're going to show this message to the user. Enter a positive number. And whatever the user is going to be entered, it is going to be stored in a variable called number, which is initialized here, and it is of an integer data type. Okay. And we are going to put a condition here as long as that number that is entered by users is less than or equal to 0, go back up again and show this message, enter a positive number to the user. So go back up again and enter a positive number. So I entered like -2. It is stored in a variable called number. And here we are checking this -2 is less than 0. Yes, absolutely correct. Then it goes back up again. It says enter a positive number. So it is going to repeat infinitely as long as I enter a positive number. And once I entered a positive number, like number 10 here, it is stored in a variable called number, and it says 10, is it less than 0? No, this condition is not true. Therefore, the do while is terminated. And finally, we are going to print this message. You entered, and then number here. So you entered 10. This is how we can have the do while loop being executed once before checking the conditions. And it's a practical example that we had here. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In today's video, I would like to discuss basic function that prints a message. So here is my main public class that I have here, and there I have the call of a function that says say hello. So it's a name of a function that I defined below. So when I want to define this function, I simply write down this keyword public static void. For the moment, just imagine that this is what we need to write for a function. Then we are going to discuss various types of functions that have different keywords there. So public static void, and then the name of the function. We can name it whatever we want. And because this function is a basic function and takes no parameter, there is nothing to be inside the parentheses here. Okay, and so nothing is there, it's empty. Then this function, whenever it is called, it is going to basically execute this message, system out println hello world. So hello world is going to be printed. using the system out println. So when I run the code, you see that this hello world is being printed in the output. So what if I call the function twice? So when I write down say hello one more time and I run the code, we see hello world 2 times. Okay, so instead of printing these things like several times, instead of writing the system out println message 2 times, I simply call the function 2 times. So this function is going to be called 2 times, then this line is going to be executed 2 times. So this is why actually we have functions in programming, because when we want to perform a repetitive tasks, we need to put it inside a function. Therefore, whenever we call the function, this function is going to execute the repetitive task instead of just repeating ourselves in the main part of the code, which is going to reduce the readability of our code. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to discuss function that returns a value. So here is my function that is called add. And this function is going to have the public static int. So it means that the output of this function is not a void anymore, it's an integer. So there is an output for this function. When we are having the void before the name of the function, like here, it means that this function is not going to return anything in the output, but it is going to basically execute certain block of code. But here it means that this function has an output that is of integer type. This function add requires 2 parameters, a and b. Both of them are integer data type as well. Basically, whenever this function is called, it is going to print this for us in the output. It is going to basically not to print, but to return a plus b. It is going to calculate the addition of a and b in the output. Okay. So now in the main function here, I have the call of the function add with the numbers 5 and 3. And the output of this function is going to be assigned to a variable that is called a result, which is of int or integer data type, meaning that this function is called, it is going to return the output, and the output of this function is assigned to this variable. Okay. And then we are going to print the result variable. So this is why when I run the code, the function is going to calculate 5 plus 3, which is 8, and we are having 8 in the output. So if I have another variable that is result2, for example, and I am going to add instead, now I'm going to add 10 and 12, for example. Okay. And then I'm going to have system.out.println the result 2. I want to be printed in the output. So when I run the code, we see number 22 is being printed in the terminal, meaning that I called this function twice because I wanted to perform a repetitive task and with different parameters. This time I'm passing number 10 and 12 as a and b, and this function add is called. So on the right hand side, this call of the function is called. This function is going to execute a plus b, which is number 22. So the right hand side is 22 now. It is assigned to a variable result2 of integer data type, and here I'm going to print a result2 in the output. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to discuss function that takes a parameter. So here is the function that I defined. It's a public static void, and the name of this function is greet, and it accepts one parameter that is of type string, and the name of this parameter is name. Okay. So whenever this function is called, it is going to execute this block of code. It is going to print hello and then put the name there after the hello that is used when we call this function. So now let me call the function in the main function. So in the main function, I have only one line of the code. I have the call of the function that is greet. So I write down simply the name of my function there. Then inside parentheses, because this takes a parameter that is called name, I write down that here is Alice. Okay, so I want to have the call of the function that is Alice. So when I run the code, it says hello Alice. So this function is called, hello message is by default being printed. And then this name that is passed as the argument, which is Alice, is going to be printed there. So now I would like to have the greet function, and now I would like to write down the name of Reza. Okay, so I just write down the name of Reza. This name is going to be by default there. It's because of my compiler. If your compiler might even have it, it means that this Reza is going to be assigned to the name variable that is required when calling the greet function. So when I run the code now, this time it says hello Reza. You see it here? So this is basically a function that takes a parameter, and this function is going to basically print this line of the code plus the name that is used to call the function. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to discuss function overloading or method overloading, meaning that we are having two functions with the same name, but they are having different parameters. Let me illustrate it with an example. So there are two functions that I defined apart from the main function. The first one is a void type, meaning that it is not going to return anything in the output. And the name of this function is say hi. In parentheses, you see it's empty, meaning that it requires no parameter. Whenever this say hi function is called, this line is executed. It is going to print hi. The only message that it is going to print is hi, simply that. Then we are having another say hi function, the exact same name, and it's a void type. But this time, this function requires one parameter whenever it is called. So whenever this say hi function is called, it needs a variable called name, which is of string data type. And whenever this function is called, it is going to execute this line, meaning that say hi, and then add the name of the person. For example, I call this function with Reza, the name of Reza. It says hi Reza. But the previous one was simply just saying hi. Okay, so these are two functions. The same name, the same type, both of them are void type. But one of them requires parameter, the other one requires no parameter. Now, in the main function, here I call the say hi, and again here I call the say hi function. Okay, so what happens here? We are having two functions. They're having the same name. They are of the void data type, but isn't it confusing for the compiler? So the compiler, how does the compiler understand which say hi function I would like to be executed? The compiler is going to mix these two functions or not? No, the answer is no. Why? The reason is that the compiler is very smart. Because the compiler understands if you're calling the say hi function with no parameter, it understands that you're talking about the first function that requires no parameter. But if you're putting one parameter in the say hi function whenever it is called, it means that you're talking about this one. So the compiler can understand it. Yeah, it's smart. So I write down say hi, so it means that I'm calling the say hi function with no parameters in the parentheses, meaning that I want this function to be executed. Then I call the say hi function again, but this time I put the name Alice inside the parentheses, and the compiler understands, okay, this guy is trying to call the say hi function, the same hi function that has one parameter that is of a string, and he is passing a string. So it means that this person is talking about this say hi function. Okay, so when I run the code, firstly I see hi in the output, because firstly we call the say hi function and this one is being printed in the output. Then we see that hi Alice is being printed in the output, which is the result of this say hi function. So if I have the, for example, say hi, and then this time I write down Reza, for example, and I run the code one more time, it is going to say hi Reza. So you see this part is being executed. But if I again say hi, call the say hi function with no parameters inside the parentheses, basically it is going to call the first say hi function, which is just printing hi in the output. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video we are going to have a coding exercise that we are going to write a function to check if a number is even or not. So here is my main function. In the main function I have the call of a function that is check even, and in parentheses I have one parameter that is number 4. Okay, so on the right hand side I'm calling a function that is that is named check even, and its result is going to be stored in this variable that is called is even, which is of Boolean data type, meaning that it can be either true or false. So let me go and discuss the check even function. Here we see that this is a Boolean function, meaning that it is going to return a value when instead of this Boolean, when we are having the void keyword, void 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 keyword, it means that that function is of a void type, therefore it is not going to return anything. But when it is returned that it's Boolean, it means that it is going to have an output, and it is going, the output is of Boolean data type, meaning that it is going to return a Boolean data type. Instead of Boolean, if it was int, meaning that it was integer, it meant that it is going to return integer for us. Okay, so this is the Boolean function, that this is a function that is going to return Boolean for us. The name of the function is check even, and it is going to accept one parameter, int a number, meaning that that parameter needs to be of integer data type, and it is called number. This is the name of the parameter that needs to be passed for the check even function whenever it is called. So whenever this function is called, it is going to execute this line of code, which is basically returning the output of this line. So we call the function check even with number 4, meaning that that variable number equals 4. Now this number 4 is assigned to this number because this is a parameter we use inside the parentheses, and this is the by default let's say defined parameter for the function here, as we see. So that 4 is assigned to the variable number, and we check if that number, which is 4, divided by 2, and the remainder of their division, using the modulo operator, we can have the remainder of the division, equals 0. If this statement is true, it is going to return true. Otherwise, it is going to return false. So 4 divided by 2, the remainder of this division, is it equal to 0? Yes. Therefore, it is going to return true. So true is the output of this part. It is going to assign it to is even variable. And here, after that, we are going to see system out println, meaning that we are printing this message is even. It's a question, and then we put the value of the parameter. So is even is written there, the variable name, and if it holds the value true, it is going to print true in the output. Otherwise, it is going to print false in the output. So when I run this code, we see that here we expect to see the answer true in the terminal. So we say is even, and the answer is true. Why? Because 4 divided by 2, it's the remainder of this division equals 0, meaning that that number is even, because the definition of an even number is that when a number is divided by 2, the remainder of their division must be equal to 0 if that number is an even number. Otherwise, it's an odd number. So let me try another number. So instead of 4, let me write down, for example, 5, and run the code one more time. So now I expect to see false in the output, because 5, when it is divided by 2, the remainder of their division is not equal to 0. Therefore, this statement is not true. Therefore, this statement is false. So it is going to return false. The right hand side is false. False is assigned to is even variable, and it is being printed in the output. So is even? No, false. So this is how basically we can define a function to check whether a number is an even number or not. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to write a program that defines a function, and that function needs to find the maximum of 2 numbers. So let's dive in. In the main function, I have a call of a function that is called find max, and there are 2 parameters so that is passed when we are calling this function. So this function find max is here. So when I go there, we see that it's of integer function type, meaning that it is going to return an integer value for us. So this is the name of the function. We can change it as we wish. And there are two parameters inside the parentheses, meaning that whenever we call this function, we need to have two parameters inside the parentheses, and they have to be of integer data type. Basically, whenever this function is called, this line of code must be executed. This part of the code, this block of code is executed. And there we're checking to see if the value of A is larger than B, greater than B. So the first parameter is greater than the second parameter. If so, return A, because A is the larger, greater value, because this is a function to find us the maximum of two numbers. So if A greater than B, return A, meaning that, okay, so we're comparing, for example, 10 and 7. If A equals 7 and B equals 10, so 7, is it larger than 10? No. This statement is not true, therefore it's not going to return A. Else, meaning that if this condition is not true, it is going to go to the else part and it is going to return B, which is number 10. So let me explain it one more time. Here I have a call of a function with two parameters, 7 and 10. The output of this function is going to be assigned to the right hand side of this, okay? Meaning that we call the function with A equals 7 and B equals 10. We check here, it is going to return B for us because 10 is greater than 7. So the output is this B, which is number 10. So 10 is on the right hand side. It is assigned to a variable of integer data type, which is called max. Then we are printing max in the output. So when I run the code, we see the maximum is 10. So let me change the number. So now this one is 17 and B is 10. So when I run the code one more time, basically what happens here is that A equals 17, B equals 10 now. So 17, is it greater than 10? Yes, so return A. And this part of the code is never going to be executed. So it is returning A, which is number 17. On the right hand side, we have the 17. It is assigned to the variable max. And finally, in the next line, I'm printing the variable max here in the output. So this is basically how to define a function to find the maximum of two numbers. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to have a coding exercise. In this coding exercise, we're going to have void versus a return function comparison. So there are different types of functions, like the function with default parameter or default value, a void function, or a function that returns a method. And in the return method, we are having different types of function as well, like a function that returns integer, a function that returns a string, a function that returns float, etc., etc. So here now we would like to compare functions that return some value in general with void functions. So now in the main function, if you see, as you see here, I have this line. First of all, I'm calling a function that is called print square, and we are having one parameter that is number 4 inside the parentheses. So the compiler, whenever it sees this line, it is going to execute this function. Basically, this function is called print square. It's a void type, and it requires one parameter. So whenever this function is called, it needs to be called with a parameter in the parentheses that must be of integer data type. So number 4 is the variable x here. Okay. This function is of void data type. Sorry, this function is of void type. So this function is not going to return anything for us. Basically, it is going to perform the execution of certain blocks of code. That's it. It's not going to return anything. So whenever this function is called, it is going to execute this line, meaning that it is going to print this message first, saying that square is, and then do the calculation. So x multiplied by x, which is number 4, multiplied by 4, it is 16, and we see it here in the output. Okay, so this is the void function that we have here. Now I would like to discuss another function. So the second line, on the right hand side, we see that we are having a call of a function that is called getSquare, and we are having one parameter inside the parentheses, and that parameter is number 5. So whenever the compiler sees this part, it is going to execute and call this function. So getSquare function is called. We need one parameter that is of integer data type, exactly like the previous function. It is requiring an integer number in the parentheses that we are having number 5 here. So 5 is assigned to the variable x. This getSquare function is of integer type, meaning that it is going to indeed return a value. So it is going to return a value for us. And what would be that value? It's here. So return x multiplied by x. So basically, whenever this function is called, it is going to calculate x multiplied by x, and it is going to return this value. So 16, let's say, sorry, number 5 multiplied by 5, it will be 25. So 25 is the answer of the right hand side, which is assigned to the variable called result, which is of integer type. And a result equals 25 now. And then in the next line, we are going to print this message, return square, then number 25 is being printed as we see it here in the output. So in this video, we learned the differences between a void function that is going to simply execute a certain blocks of code with a function that is going to return a value. In this case, it was of integer type, the function. Thanks for watching. Hello everybody, what's up? In today's video, we would like to discuss calling a method from another method. So basically we would like to discuss calling a function that is called from another function. Let me illustrate it with an example. So here is my main function. In this main function, I am calling a function that is called start, okay? And it requires no parameter because there is no parameter inside the parentheses. So we go and check this start function. So we go, and here we see that when in the main function this line is written, the compiler is basically going to implement this line of code. So it is going to call the start function and then execute this part of the code. So this is a start function with no parameters. It's a void type. It means that it is not going to return anything. Whenever this start function is called, it is going to basically print this message saying that starting ... okay, starting. After that, it is going to call a function that is called display message. Whenever the compiler sees this line of code, it is going to execute this function now. So this is another function that is called display message. It's a void type. It is not going to return anything. And then whenever it is called, it is going to print this message, hello from inside another method. Okay. So when I run the code, you see that first of all, this starting is being printed. So I call the start function. It goes and execute this function. This is what is being printed. Then it is going to call the display message function. Inside the display message function, it is going to write down hello from inside another method. So you see that this message is being shown there. So basically in the main function here, I'm calling the start function that you see here. And in the start function, which is this part, I am calling the display message function, and then this function is being executed. So in this video, we learned how to call a function from another function. Hey everybody, what's up? In today's video, we're going to learn about arrays in Java. So first of all, we're going to learn how to declare and initialize an array. So here is my array that is called numbers. And as you see here, these are its elements. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are the elements of the array called numbers. And this array is of integer data type. This is why we are having the int, or let's say int keyword before the name of the array. So now we initialized our array. I would like to learn how to access and print elements of this array. Okay, so let me first of all comment a few lines here. So this line, these lines I don't want for the moment. Yeah, okay. So now when I run the code, I see only one output. Okay, now it's good. So here was my array. I would like to access and print elements of this array. When we want to print an element, we use this syntax system out println, and inside parentheses, if I want to print the first element of the numbers array, simply I write down the name of the array, which is numbers, and then here in brackets I would like to write the index of the element that I would like to be printed in the output. So I would like to print the first element, which is number 1. Therefore, I need to write down its index, and we need to know that indexing starts from 0. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So these are the indices. So the first element has the index 0, therefore number 1 is with the index 0. So I want to print the first number, which is number 1, so I put index 0 here. So when I run the code, I see 1 in the output. But what if I want to print number 4 here? If I want to print number 4, I simply write down its index, which is number 3. So I run the code. Now you see that number 4 is being printed in the output. So basically this is how we can access and print elements in Java for an array. Then we would like to learn how is it possible to iterate through an array using a for loop. Okay, so when I uncomment these 3 lines, we see that we are having a for loop, meaning that we are going to loop over our arrays. So we are having our iterating variable, which is called I. It's of integer data type and it starts from 0, and this loop is going to continue as long as I is less than the length of this array. Okay, so the length of this array is 5 because we are having 5 elements, and this I is going to continue as long as it is less than the size of the array, let's say 5. So it is going to start from 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 5 repetition, 5 iterations, but starting from 0 and continues as long as it is 4, which is less than 5. In each iteration, it is going to this loop is going to increment the value of I by 1 unit, and in each iteration we simply are going to print the ith element of the numbers array. Okay, so let me illustrate it with an example. So the first iteration, I equals 0, meaning that we are going to have numbers 0, meaning that we would like to print the element with index 0 from the numbers array. So it is equal to number 1 because this is number 1 with index 0. In the next iteration, we are going to have numbers and with the index 1, index 2, index 3, etc. So when I run this code now, we see that all the elements of our array is being printed in the output. So this is another example that we have here. So another way to iterate over an array is iterating using enhanced for loops. So we can have the iterating variable num that is going to iterate through the numbers array, and in each iteration we are going to print num again. So when I run the code, we expect to see the same result, but this is another method. So you see that 1 to 5 is being printed in the output again, but this is another method because here we were saying that the iterating variable, the starting point, ending point, and the incremental value in each iteration. But simply here we are using enhanced for loop, saying that okay, there is an iterating variable called num. It must iterate through the numbers array and print whatever that is there. So this is why we are having this one here. Now we want to find the maximum element in our array. So when I go up, we see that the maximum element is number 5. So we see that, we can understand it by seeing it right now. But what if our array is so big that we cannot identify it manually? So this is why we do programming, because we want to make our life easier. So this is going to the programming language, the Java needs to figure it out. So here I initialize a variable that is called max, and I just assign one number to it, which is the number, the element with index 0 of the numbers array, which is number 1. I just randomly give it one number to initialize it to a number. Okay, then I have a for loop. Again, it is going to start from 1 as long as it is less than the length of the array. And why it is going to start from 1? Because already it is having the first element, which is number 1 here, assigned to the max. So we don't want to again check that, but we can again start from 0. It's not a problem. It's just to optimize the for loop and do one less iteration. Then in each iteration we check if the element that we are having it is larger than the value that is assigned to the max variable. If so, assign that number to the max. Okay, so let me illustrate it with an example. So first iteration, sorry. So in the first iteration, I equals 0. Okay, therefore numbers 0 is being investigated to be larger than max, and max is also number 0. So both of them are number 1, meaning that 1, is it larger than 1? No, it's not. So we are not going to do anything here. Okay, nothing happened in this iteration. We go up, we increment the value of I. So we go for the second iteration. Second iteration, I equals 1. So we are having numbers. So the element that has the index 1, what is that number? The element with index 1 is number 2. Okay, so number 2 is there. We are checking to see if 2 is larger than number 1. Why number 1? Because we are comparing it with the max variable, which is the first element of the array, which is number 1. So 2, is it larger than, greater than 1? Yes. Now that it's true, assign number 2. So the max variable now is 2. We updated the value of the max variable. Then we go for the third iteration, where I equals 3, for example. We are having numbers, sorry, I equals 2. We are searching for the element with index 2, which is this number, number 3. And we check to see if 3 is larger than 2. Is it true? Yes. Therefore max equals 3. So this is going to continue for 2 more times. So we are going to have the 4th iteration and the 5th iteration, and finally this iteration is going to help us to find the maximum value, which is number 5. So when I run the code now, we see that it says max equals 5. This is the result that is being printed here. So in this video, we learned how to declare and initialize an array in Java. We learned how to access and print elements of an array. We learned how to iterate through an array using a for loop. We learned how to iterate using enhanced for loop, and we learned how to find the max element in an array. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to learn how to calculate the sum of numbers in an array in Java. So here is my array called numbers. It's of integer data type, and its numbers, its elements are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there are 5 elements from 1 to 5. I would like to calculate their sum. Of course, we can do it manually. We can simply write down, for example, 1 For example, we can have int x equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 and do the calculation manually ourselves. But we do programming because we think that it can be beneficial and it can help us to improve the speed, because there might be like many elements there that we want to calculate their sum, like 1000 elements in an array, so it's not possible to do it manually. So in order to calculate their sum, first of all we need to have a variable that we call sum, initialized to be 0. It's of integer data type. Then we are having a for loop, that this for loop is going to iterate through the array called numbers. So this is my iterating variable num. This number is going to iterate through all the elements of numbers array, and in each iteration that iterating variable is going to take one of the elements value and assign it to the variable sum. For example, so in the first iteration we are going to have sum equals sum plus num, because sum plus equal num, this is exactly this equation here. Okay, sum equals sum plus num, and sum was originally initialized to be 0, so this is 0. Okay, so sum, new sum equals 0 plus, what is the num? The num is the iterating variable. In the first iteration it is taking the first value, so it is number 1, therefore sum equals 1. Okay, so this is the first iteration. Then in the second iteration we are going to have again sum equals sum plus num. Okay, the same formula. However, the values are now changing. So sum equals 1 plus 2. Why? This 1 is the value of sum that we calculated from the previous iteration. This number 2 is the iterating variable num that is taking the second value in the second iteration. So sum equals 3 now. Then we are going to have the third iteration where we see sum equals 3 plus 3, it will be 6. Then fourth iteration we are going to have 6 plus 4, and then we are going to have 10 plus 5. Okay, so this is how it is going to work. This is the next iteration, fifth iteration. So this is basically how it's going to work. It is going to iterate through all the elements of this array, and in each iteration it is going to add that element into this sum variable. And when the iteration is finished, meaning that we went through all the elements of the array, then we are going to print the value of the sum variable. So when I run this code now, we should be able to see the sum as number 15. So this is exactly what we expected. So sum equals 15, exactly what we calculated, 10 plus 5. So finally in the fifth iteration we are going to have number 15 out there. So basically this is how we can calculate the sum of an array, but some of the elements of an array. But if we increase the elements, for example, I have now elements from 1 to 10 and I run the code one more time, everything is correct, everything is done, and the sum is 55. So this is why programming is good, because you write down the program one time and it is going to calculate everything for every run that you do. So you don't need to calculate the sum now manually, because it's harder. If you wanted to do things like here manually, it would have been harder to add these numbers as the numbers are getting larger and larger. However, when we are changing the input, because the program is coded correctly, we can have the sum easily in the output by the program calculated. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to learn how to reverse an array in Java. First of all, I'm having my declaration and initialization of an array. This is an array called numbers. It's of integer data type, and these are the elements of the array. So as you see, I have elements from 1 to 10, and we see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. until 10 are the elements of this array. And if I want to print this array, we can loop over this array simply and print it in the output. However, what I would like to do is to reverse this array, meaning that as you see in the output, I have the last element to be printed first, then the 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 until we reach number 1. So I would like to reverse this array. So in fact, I would like to print the reverse of this array. Instead of printing it simply from 1 to 10, I would like to print from 10 to 1. But how can we do it? We need to reverse the array. Now, in this example, in order to reverse the array, I need to have a for loop. So I write down the for keyword. Here, first of all, I define my iterating variable, which is I in our case here. And it is equal to, we need to initialize it, it is equal to the length of the numbers array minus 1. You might be wondering why minus 1. So let's first start with the length of the numbers array. So the length we know because there are 10 elements. So we see that there are 10 elements there. So the length of the array is number 10. But we are reducing it by one value. Why? Because we are having the indexing starting from 0. So when I would like to deal with the last element, I need to write down its index, which is number 9. Why? Because indexing starts from 0, because the first element, which is number 1, has the index 0, the second element has index 1, the third element has index 2, etc., until we reach the last element with index 9. So whenever I would like to have the index of the last element in an array, I need to write down the length of that array minus 1. So this is my iterating variable now being initialized. Then I would like to continue this loop as long as my iterating variable I is greater than or equal to 0. And in each iteration, we are going to reduce the value of my iterating variable I by 1 unit. Okay, so basically we are going to have the iteration starting from I equals to 9, and we are going to continue as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, which is the index of the first element. And in each iteration, we are going to reduce its value by 1 unit. So in each iteration, for this for loop, we are going to execute this line. We are going to print the ith element, let's say the element with the ith index of the numbers array. So for example, in first iteration, let's say first iteration where I equals 9, we are going to have the print of numbers, and we are going to have the number 9 there, meaning that print the element with index 9 of the numbers array. So index 9, element with index 9 is number 10. So we're going to print number 10. Okay. Then we are having the second iteration, which is here. Okay. Now we reduced it in the iteration. After each iteration, we are going to reduce the value of I because of this part of the code. So now we are having numbers and now 8. Okay, meaning that we are having the element of the numbers array that has the index 8, which is index 8 is for number 9. So we're printing number 9 now. So you see that in the first iteration we printed the last element, then we are printing now the 1 to last element, number 9, then 8, etc., until we reach number 1. So when I run this code, this is why actually we see number 10, number 9, 8, etc., until we reach number 1. So this iteration is going to continue as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. When it equals 0, it is going to print the element with the index 0, which is number 1. Then we reduce it one more time, so the I equals now -1. So -1, is it greater than or equal to 0? No, it's not going to pass this condition. Therefore, this for loop is finished and the program has nothing more to be executed. Therefore, the program is finished. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to learn how to initialize a two-dimensional array in Java and how to access its element. So first of all, I would like to initialize a two-dimensional matrix, or let's say two-dimensional array in Java. First of all, this is the name of my array. I call it matrix. It can be whatever. It can be my array, for example. If I write it down here, it will be my array. So this can be my name here, and this can be my name here. So I call it my array here. And basically, when I run this code, we see that the program is going to be executed. So there is no problem on that front. So this is your choice. You're going to choose the name of your array. I call it my array. So this is a two-dimensional array. How do I know that? Because I have two places here. So one bracket here and the other bracket is here. Okay, so it means that there is there are a number of rows and there are a number of columns. Okay, so the first one is for the rows, this one is for the columns. And this array, which is called my array, is of integer data type. Therefore, after that we have the equal sign, square bracket, and within which we are going to initialize the numbers of this array. So we see that here, this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the first column, this is the second column, and this is the third column. Okay, so in the first row I have number 1, 2, 3. In the second row I have number 4, 5, 6. In the first column I have 1, 4. Second column 2, 5. Third column 3 and 6. Okay, so this is the initialization of my two-dimensional array. Now I would like to learn how to access its elements. So first, let's say I would like to print this number 6, which is the name of the array, which is the one element of this array. So basically, in order to access this number 6, we need to address the compiler, give the address to the compiler, actually to give the compiler the address of number 6. Okay, sorry. So now I have the system out println, meaning that I would like to print it in the output. What is that is inside the parentheses. So I would like to go for the my array. So the compiler knows to check the my array. Go for the row number with index 1, let's say, and the column with index 2. Okay. So we learned that everything starts from number 0 indexing. So this is the first row with index 0. This is the second row with index 1. And this is the index 1 row. So we are talking about this row when I'm addressing this. Okay, so this is the address of the row. This is the second row with index 1. Now I would like to have the column with index 2. So this is the first column, index 0, second column, index 1, third column, index 2, as you see here. Okay, so here when we are having the third column with index 2 and the second row with index 1, we see that the intersection is number 6. So number 6 is being printed in the output when I run the code. So as I mentioned earlier, when we want to initialize an array, we see that here we are having two brackets, one for the row, one for the column. So this is the address of the row, this is the address of the column. Now what if I want to print number 5 in the output? So this number is in the second row, which is index 1, and again here it is going to be in the second column, which has the index 1 as well. So I modify this and I run the code here. You see that when I run the code, number 5 is being shown in the output. Basically, this is how we can initialize a two-dimensional array and also to access its elements. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, what's up? In today's video, we are going to learn how to go through a two-dimensional array in Java using for loops. So here is my array called my array. It's of integer data type and it has 2 dimensions. And we have 2 rows. This is the first row, this is the second row, and we are having 3 columns. First column, second column, and the third column. Okay. Now I would like to learn how I can go through this array. So first of all, when I run this code, I see that here we are having the print of this array 1, 2, 3 in the first row and 4, 5, 6 in the second row. Okay. In order to have the iteration through a two-dimensional array, we need a nested for loop. A nested for loop means that we are having an outer layer, outer loop, which is this one, and one inner loop. Okay, so the outer loop is good for going through the number of rows, and the inner loop is for the columns. Okay. So first of all, we are going to have the iterating variable I starting from 0. It is going to continue as long as it is less than the length of the array. And we are going to, in each iteration, increment the value of I by 1 unit. Then the inner loop is having the iterating variable j starting from 0. It is going to continue as long as the array, the length of the ith element of the array. So it is going to continue as long as it is less than the length of the ith of the my array. Okay. Then we are going to increment the value of j in each iteration by 1 unit. So in the beginning, it may sound a bit abstract, but I'm going to illustrate it with an example. Then in this part, we are going to have the print of this array. So the element in the ith row and jth column is going to be printed in the output. For example, so when I look at the output here we see that in the first iteration, we are having I equals 0, j equals 0 as well. Okay, so in this case we are going to print the my array 0 and 0. So the element that is inside the my array with the index of the row of 0, which is the first row, and with the index of the column 0, which is the first column, is number 1. It's going to be printed here in the output. Okay. Then in the second iteration, we're going to have still I equals 0, but now j equals 1. You see, we are incrementing the value of j because we are inside this loop. We are inside the inner loop. Okay. And the outer loop is still the same because we're going to have the I to be 0 and j is going to take all its values 0, 1 and 2. Then we are going to increment the value of I one more time. So now we are having my array, and this time it is I 0 and j 1, meaning that we are dealing with the element with the row index 0, which is this one, and the column index 1, which is this number. So number 2 is being printed here in the output, and here it is number 1. Okay, so in the third iteration we are going to have still I equals 0, j equals 2, however. So in this case we are having my array 0 and 2, meaning that we are talking about the first row still because the index is 0, and the column with index 2, which is this one. Okay, so this number is being printed in the output. But now j has reached its maximum number, and now the inner loop is finished, but we are still having the outer loop. Okay, so we go up, we increment the value of I. So in the fourth iteration we are having I equals 1 this time, and j again equals 0. Okay, in this case we are having the my array 1 and 0. okay, meaning that we are talking about number 4 because the index 1 is the second row and the index 0 of the column is the first column, which is number 4. Okay, in the 5th iteration we still have I equals 1, but this time j equals 1, and in the 6th iteration we're going to have the I equals 1 and j equals 2, and then we're going to have number 6 in the output. Okay, so as you see here in this exercise, we learned how to go through a two-dimensional array using a nested for loop, and we learned about the nested loops because when we are talking about something inside another thing, so a loop inside another loop, so we are having this loop inside the first loop. Okay, and you see that here 1 2 3 they are being printed in the first row, and because we are having these numbers here, so all of them I equals 0, j equals 0 1 2, and then because the inner loop is finished here and we had to go up and increment the value of I from 0 to 1, we are having this line. This line is going to help me to let the compiler knows to go to the next line, so it goes here, then it goes up and increment the value I from 0 to 1, and we see that here in the output we are having 4 5 and 6. Thanks for watching. Hello everybody, welcome to this video. In today's video we're going to learn how to fill an array from user input in Java. So first of all, here I am trying to create a scanner object to read input from our users. Then here we are declaring and initializing an integer array of size 5 because I would like to have 5 inputs from our users. You can modify it if you want to have 10 elements. If you want to have 11 elements, you can simply modify that. And the name of my array is ARR. We can modify this as well. Then in order to read the inputs from our users, we need to have a for loop. So we have a loop to fill the array with values that are going to be inserted by our user. Okay, so we are having our iterating variable I starting from 0. It is going to continue as long as it is less than the length of our array, and we're going to increment the value of I at each iteration. Then we are having here the prompt the user to enter a value. We are showing this message to the user, enter value, and whatever the user is going to enter, it's going to be stored into the array at index I. So at the end, we're going to print the array in the output using a for loop. The for loop again starts from the iterating variable equals 0. It continues as long as the iterating variable is less than the length of the array, and in each iteration we are going to increment its value by 1 unit, and in each iteration we are going to print the array at index I. So let me illustrate it with an example. So when I run this code, you see here it says enter value, so this message is being shown. So now I enter number 1, it says enter value. Now number 1 in the first iteration, number 1 is stored at the first element of the array ARR. Okay, so now ARR equals now the first element is 1, so we're going to have the other elements there as well. So now it says enter value, I would say number 5, so the second element is number 5. Then it says enter value, I enter number 9 for example, so the third element is number 9. Then it says enter value, I enter number 3, so the fourth number is number 3. And finally it says enter value. This is the last this is their last iteration because the size of the array is number 5. We initialize it here, and the I is going to continue as long as it is less than the length. So this is the I equals 0 with index 0, I with index 1, I index 2, 3, and now 4 is less than 5. Therefore this is the last element. I put number 2. So I put number 2. Now I created my array called ARR with 5 elements. These are the elements, and the indexing starts from 0 as we know from before. So these are the indices of the elements. Okay, so in the first iteration, when I equals 0, we are talking about this number. So index is 0, and number 1 is assigned to as the first element, which has the index 0. With index 1, we are having number 5 as the second element. Number 9, however, has the index 2 as the third element. Okay, so this is how actually the iteration works. So we see that here it asks me to enter 5 values, and I entered them. Finally, it is printing the values that I entered. Basically, it is printing the elements in the ARR array. So you see that here we are in each iteration, we are printing array at index I, meaning that when I equals 0, we are printing number 1. Then in the next iteration, the element which is number 5, it is printing the I equals 1 as the index. So number 5 is being printed. Then I equals 2, number 9 is printed. I equals 3, number 3 is printed. And I equals 4, number 2 is being printed in the output. So in this video, we learned how to design a program that can ask users to enter their input, and we're going to store them and display them in the output. Thanks for watching. Hello everybody, welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to learn how to work with array list, or we call it resizable arrays in Java. We're going to learn about how to create them and add elements. We're going to learn how to access one element and update elements, remove elements. We're going to learn how to iterate through array lists, how to check their size and check if an element exists or not. And we're going to learn to sort an array list. We're going to learn how to clear all the elements, and we're going to iterate through them one more time to make sure that we made the clearing very well. So first of all, when we go up here, I am creating an array list called names. Okay, it's of the string data type. Basically, in order to do that, we simply write down the array list keyword. The data type is a string, and this is the name. And on the right hand side, we are going to have the new array list, and this is how basically to create an array list in Java. Now I would like to add a few elements to it. In order to add a few elements, first of all, I write down the name of the array list. Then I use the add keyword, and in parentheses, in quotes, I write down the names that I would like to be added to this names array list. Okay, so now I'm adding Reza, then I'm adding Bob, and then I'm adding Charlie. And I'm just putting these stars there in order to make sure we're differentiating different parts of the code, to make sure that we're not mixing the different steps. So now I added a few elements to my array list. So first of all, I would suggest to have a for loop in order to print everything that exists in my names array list. So when I run the code now, you see that here these three names, Reza, Bob, and Charlie, they are being printed in the output. So we first of all created an empty array list called names. We added 3 elements, and now using a for loop, we were able to print the elements. How do we do that? We are creating an iterating variable called name from the string data type that is going to iterate through all the elements of the names array list. In each iteration, simply it is going to print that element, which are Reza, Bob, and Charlie. Okay, so this is the first phase. Now I would like to access a specific element. Okay, In order to access a specific element, I use system out println, and inside parentheses, I write down the name of my array list, then the get function, and the index of the elements that I would like to access. So the first element has always the index 0. So I would like to access the first element. I simply write down the index 0 for the get function for the names array list. This is going to print a Reza for me in the output. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. Then I have the updating of elements. So I would like to update the second element, which has the index 1, and I would like it to be David. Previously it was Bob. Now I would like it to be David. So I use the set function for the names array list, and then before comma I write down the name of the index of the element that I would like to be changed. Then after the comma I write down the name that I would like to be the element that is going to be instead of the current element. So the current element is Bob, the second element with index 1. Now I would like it to be David, and after that I simply print and access the element with index 1 to see if everything is done correctly or not, and I see yes, David is being printed in the output rather than Bob, which was the second element with index 1. So basically this is how we can access and update elements. Then I would like to remove an element from the array list. How do we do that? Simply I call the remove function for the names array list, and inside parentheses I write down the index of the element that I would like to be printed, that I would like to be removed from the array list. Then I use a for loop, let's say, to print my array list to make sure that the element at index 2, which was Charlie, is being removed. And I see the print in the output, and we see Reza and David only. So Charlie is being deleted and removed from the output using the remove function. And then I would like to check the size of my array. In order to check the size, I simply have the size function for the names array list, and I use system out println in order to print it in the output. So we see that the size is 2 because now currently we are having only 2 elements, Reza and David. So this is why we are having the size of 2. And I would like to check if a specific element exists in my array list or not. In order to check that, we simply use the contains function for the names array list, and inside parentheses I write down Alice, and I would like to see if Alice is there or not. So if it exists, it's going to return true. If it's not, it's going to return false. So it's false because Alice does not exist in my array list that contains Reza and David. However, if instead of Alice I write down Reza and I run the code one more time, we expect to see true. Yes, this is true, and true is being printed in the output because Reza indeed is one of the elements of my array list. Okay. Then what if I would like to sort the array list? In order to sort that, first of all, we need to import this library collections. Okay. After importing that library, I use the sort function from the collection library, and inside parentheses I write down the name of the array list that I want to be sorted. After doing the sort, when I go down and I have a for loop to print all the elements of the array one more time, this time I see that first David is being shown in the output, then Reza. Why? Because now sorting in ascending order puts David first and Reza as the second element, because we are having A, B, C, D first, and then we go down the alphabetic order to reach R, which is Reza. So R comes after D. This is why now David is the first element as well. And now I would like to remove all the elements of this array list. In order to do that, simply I call the clear function for the names array list, and one more time I have a for loop to print the array list, and as we see, nothing is being printed in the output, meaning that all the elements have been removed, therefore we don't have any elements to be printed in the output. So in this video we learned about everything that we need to know about array lists in Java. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, what's up? In today's video we're going to work with classes and objects in Java. So first of all, here is my main part of my main function, let's say. So this is my main function, and this is my class that I am defining here, okay? So the name of my class is person, and this class called person has two attributes. One of them is called name, the other one is called age. Name is of string data type, while age is of integer data type, okay? So this is the initialization of my person class in Java. Now in the main function down there here, basically I would like to create an instance of this person class that I have there, okay? So now in order to create an instance, or let's say to create an object of that class, I write down the name of the class, and then I write down the name of the instance, or let's say the name of the object, okay? And on the right hand side I write down new person, again the name of the class, and parentheses. This way I am initializing an instance from the person class, or an object from the person class. Now I would like to assign some values to the attributes of the person class using this object. Okay, so I write down the name of my object, then dot the name of the attribute, which is name. So p.name and p.age. Okay, these are two attributes if you remember. And on the right hand side I'm assigning some values to them. So for the p.name I'm having Alice, then p.age I'm having 25. Now in the output I would like to print this message. I would like to write down Alice is 25 years old. For calling the name Alice, I simply use the object p.name, and then we are having the is, and then p.age for the age of Alice, and then years old message in the code, and is also is in the code. So when I run this code, I see Alice is 25 years old in the output. So this is basically how I have one class. I have an object of that class. I assign some values to the attributes of that class using the objects, and then I have them in the output. So if I want to have another object of the same class, so I write down person p2 equals new person, and that's it. This is the new object. So p2.name I can say, for example, Reza. p2.age I can say 35, for example. So this is now the new object that I created, p2, and I have the name as Reza, I have 35 as the age. So two attributes of the person class are assigned two values using the second object, okay? So now if I want to have the same thing being printed in the output, I copy paste, and this time I write down p2.name and p2.age, okay? So now I run the code one more time, and apart from the first message, I see the second message in the output as well. So we see Reza is 35 years old. So we see that here in the output, we could have the prints, and we can have multiple instances or objects from a class. It depends on us. So in this video, we learned how to create and declare a class in Java, how to create an instance of that class, and how to assign some values to the attributes of that class using the objects. Thanks for watching. Hello everybody, welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to talk about constructors in Java. So here I have a class named car, and there are two attributes for this car class. One of the attributes is called model, and the other one is called year. And the first one is of a string data type, the second one is of integer data type. Okay. Now I have a constructor that is a default version that we're creating here. So I have a constructor that is named car. So the sign that we can understand if we are having a constructor or not is to check the name. So if there is a name inside the class that has the same name as the class, it means that that part is the constructor. So here I have the constructor, and it starts with the name of the class car. So the name of the class is car, and when we are having a constructor, we must have the same name. Therefore, this is the constructor. This is the sign to understand we are dealing with constructors or not. So this is car, which is the name of the class. Therefore, this part is the constructor part. And the default version is that we are assigning the unknown string to the model attribute of the car class, and the number 0 to the year attribute of the car class. Okay, if you remember, we were having two attributes, year and model, and this constructor is assigning these two values to these two attributes. In fact, when we are having constructors, it means that we would like to assign certain values to the attributes of the class. Okay, so this is the default constructor that we can have here, but we can also have a definition of a parameterized constructor in our class, meaning that we are having the car again. However, we need two parameters here. So we need a string and we need an integer. So the string is m and the integer is y. So when we are building the construct, when we are creating an instance of this car class, we need to have the declaration of two parameters, one string and one integer. And these two are going to be assigned to the attributes of the class. This may sound a little bit abstract now. I'll give you an example in a few minutes. And finally, we are having a function inside our class, and it's of void type, meaning that it is not going to return any value. It is called display, and whenever this function is called, it is going to print this for us. So the model and the year that is assigned to the attributes of the car class. So it is going to basically print the two attributes of the car class. So here I am creating an instance of the car class. So this is the first instance called C1 being created from the car class. Okay, it's an instance of the car class. So we are writing down the name of the class, which is car, and then C1, the name of the instance or object that we're creating from this class. And also here on the right hand side, we need to write down new car, meaning that we are creating a new instance from the car class. Okay, so this is based on the instance of the car class. So whenever we are creating an instance of the car class like this with nothing inside parentheses, it means that we are dealing with the constructor that is a default version, because there is no parameter inside the parentheses. Okay. However, if we would like to create an instance of the car class and call this constructor, we need to have one string and one integer inside the parentheses, which is the case here. So I have the string Toyota and the integer 2022 as my parameters inside the parentheses. So I create a new instance or object of the car class called C2, and this object, when it is created, it has two parameters, Toyota and 2022. Okay, now it is going to automatically call the parameterized constructor, which requires these two parameters. Okay, and M is the Toyota, it's the string, Y is the 2022. So M is going to be assigned to the model attribute, and Y is going to be assigned to the year attribute of the class, these two attributes of the class, okay? So we created two instances. The first one is going to automatically call the default constructor because there is no parameter inside the parentheses. And the second one is going to call the parameterized constructor because we are having two parameters inside the parentheses, okay? So using the first instance or object from the car class, I call the display function. And using the second object, I also again call the display function. So when I run this code, we see two different results in the output, although we are dealing with one class. So the first part is printing unknown and 0, but the second line is printing Toyota and 2022. So why do you think these are the results of the same class? So basically, when we are using the first object to call the display function, the display function is going to print the model and the year attribute of the class, okay? And because we created an instance here for the default parameter and the default for the default constructor, and the default constructor basically is automatically called when that instance is created, and these two values, meaning unknown and 0, are assigned to model and year respectively, okay? So when I use the same instance to call the display function, it is printing model and year, so therefore unknown and 0, both of them are being printed in the output. However, when we create the second instance here with two parameters, it is going to automatically call the parameterized constructor because this is the only constructor that requires two parameters, and one of them is a string, the other one is integer. Therefore, this M and Y, both of them are going to be assigned to model and year attributes, okay, which are Toyota and 2022. So when I call the display function using the C2 instance, it is going to print the model and year, of which are Toyota and 2022. So in this video, we learned about constructors. We learned that the constructors have the same name as the class name, okay? And whenever we are creating an object of the class, by default, these constructors are going to be automatically ran and assign certain values to the attributes of our class. And here we were dealing with two different constructors, like we defined a default constructor and one parameterized constructor. So when we are creating an instance that has no parameter, it is going to automatically call this default constructor because this is the constructor that requires no parameter. And these two values are assigned to the attributes of the class. However, when we are having another object being created and we have already a parameterized constructor, it means that when we are creating an instance, we need to, and we want to use this constructor, we want this constructor to be ran automatically, we need to have two parameters, like a string and an integer. Therefore, it is going to assign these two values as the attributes of our class, and using these two objects, we learned how to call the display function, which is inside the class. So it's not possible to access this display function without using the instance or objects of the class. We need to have an object of the class first, and then we need to have the call of this function. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, what's up? In today's video, we're going to learn about this using the this keyword in Java. So here I have a class called main, and it has two variables, name and age. So the first one is from string data type, and the second one, age, is from the integer data type, okay? And we are having a constructor here. How do I know that it's a constructor? Because the name of it is the same as the name of the class. So this constructor also has two variables, and the name of these variables are name and age respectively, that they are similar to the ones of the class attributes. Okay, in this case, because we want to make sure that we're not the compiler understands which name variable and which age variable we're talking about, we need to use the this keyword, meaning that, for example, whenever an instance of this class is created, the constructor is going to be automatically implemented, and it is going to assign these two variables to the attributes of the class. Okay, but they are having the same name. How the compiler would not mix it? So this is the solution. This name on the right hand side is for the constructor, the parameter that is passed when we were creating the instance. Also, this age on the right hand side has the same situation. But this name on the left hand side is the attributes of the class. This is why we use this keyword to let the compiler knows that this is the name for the class attributes. And again, for the age here also we are having this age. So the compiler would understand that on the right hand side we are assigning the value that is passed to the constructor when we were creating the instance. And on the left hand side we are having the this age, meaning that, okay, that right hand side value is going to be assigned to the attribute of the class which has the name age as well. Okay, this might sound a little bit abstract. I will give you an example, you will understand in a couple of minutes. So we are having a function called display in the main class, and it's a void type, meaning that it is not going to return anything for us. Whenever this display function is called, it is going to execute these two lines. So it is going to print the name and it is going to print the age. Again, we are using this keyword, meaning that, okay, be aware, we are telling the compiler, be aware that I want to print the attributes of the class, okay, this name and this age, and not these two. Okay, so here I am creating two objects, or let's say two instances of the main class. Okay, so the first one is called P1, the second one is P2. Because this main class, the name of the class is main with capital M, has a constructor, and this constructor has two parameters here. We see that this constructor has two parameters, one string and one integer. The variable names are a name and age. So because the constructor has two parameters in the parentheses, whenever we're creating an object of this class, we must have two parameters. Okay, so I will say it one more time. The class has a constructor, and this is the class. Okay, this is the start of the class. So this is the constructor. How do I know that it's a constructor? Because it has the same name as the class name. Because the constructor has two parameters in the parentheses, when I create an instance of this class, I must have two parameters as well, because whenever I create that object or that instance of the class, the constructor is going to be automatically called. Okay, so in order for it to be called, it requires two parameters, and these are the parameters, one string and one integer. So I create the P1 instance or object of the main class, and there are two parameters inside parentheses. The first one is a string, the second one is an integer, so Alice and 25. Then here I create the second object of the main class. I have Bob and the age 30. Okay, so when the constructor for the P1 is called automatically, it is basically going to assign Alice and 25. This is Alice and this is 25 to the attributes of the class, which is this name, okay, and also this age, okay, this age. So Alice and 25 on the right hand side are assigned to this name and this age, which are the attributes of the class. Okay, so these two are on the right hand side here and being assigned to these two that are the attributes of the class. Okay, Again, the same thing goes for the P2. Whenever we create this object, the constructor is automatically called, and Bob and 30, both of them are assigned to the attributes of the class. Then I use the same objects, so P1 and P2, to call the display function. So the display function, whenever it is called, it is going to execute these two lines. It is basically going to print the name of the class attribute that is stored using that specific object and its age. So I call the display function using the first object, and it is going to print me this part. Name Alice, age 25. So name and age, these are the messages that are printed. And this name and this age is going to help us to, it is going to help the compiler actually to access the values that are stored in these two class attributes through P1. Okay, through P1. Okay, and P1 was storing Alice and 25. So Alice and 25, they're both being printed in the output. And also I use the P2 to call the display function. Again, the same logic happens. Bob and 30, they were stored in the attributes of the class using the P2 object. So when I use the P2 object and call the display function, it is going to print Bob and 30 for me in the output. Okay. So in this video, we learned about classes and constructors with parameters in Java. We learned how to define a function in a class in Java. We learned how to declare and initialize an instance or object of a class, how to access a function inside a class, and also, more importantly, we learned about the this keyword that is going to help the compiler to know which variable we are talking about when the variable, the attributes of the class, their names are the same as the parameters of the constructor. Thanks for watching. Hello everybody and welcome to this video. In today's video, we are going to learn methods inside a class, or let's say functions inside a class in Java. So here is my class called calculator. I use the class keyword to declare this class, and the name of my class is calculator. Inside this class, I have two functions. So this is the first function called add function. This is the second function called multiply function. So this add function is of integer data type, meaning that it is going to return an integer for us. It requires two parameters that are both integers, a and b. So whenever we call this add function, we need to have two parameters. Okay, we need to pass two parameters. Basically, this function is going to return a plus b. Okay, the output of a plus b is going to be returned by this function. Here we are having another function called multiply. It has two parameters as well, int a and int b. Both of them are integer, and it is going to return an integer for us, and it is going to return a multiplied by b. So whenever we call this function, firstly we need to have two parameters to pass, and it is going to calculate a multiplied by b for us. So now we are having the main function here. So here, first of all, I create an object called cal from the calculator class. Okay, so this is how I create an object. Then I use that object to call the functions that are inside the calculator class. So I call the add and multiply functions here. And when I call this function, I need to have the parameters. So two integers need to be passed. 3 and 4 are passed for the add function using the cal object, which is an object of the calculator class. And also here 3 and 4 again are passed when we are calling the multiply function using the object that we just created for the calculator class. And all of these are inside the system out println because we would like to see the result in the output. So when I run this code, we see that sum, this message is being shown here, sum, and number 7 is being shown here as well. So this number 7 comes from where? So when we use that object to call the add function, because the add function is inside the calculator class, we can only call it through an object of the class. This is why actually we initially create an object of that class. So I need to have an object of that class to call the add function, and I pass these two numbers. So 3 and 4 are passed here, and this function add is going to execute this part, a plus b, meaning that 3 plus 4, the output is 7. So 7, it is going to return 7. So therefore it is going to print 7 because this number 7 is inside the system out println function. So this number 7 is being printed in the output here. And here we are having the multiply function, and 3 and 4 are passed as parameters. And we see that here we are having the number 3 multiplied by 4. So the output is 12. It is going to return 12, and 12 is being returned here. And because 12 is inside this function, it is going to print product, which is here, and number 12 is being printed in the output. So when I call the function with another number, so what if I call the function with number 5 and number 10, and here with number 6 and number 3, and I run the code one more time. So when I run the code, I expect that the values will change. So now I call the add function with number 5 and 10. So this add function is going to calculate 5 plus 10, which is 15, which is here again. And now the multiply function is called by number 6 and 3. It is going to multiply 6 by 3, which is 18, and 18 is being printed in the output. So in this video, we learned how to declare functions inside a class, how to create an object of that class to access the functions that are inside that class. Thanks for watching.